Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for making it at 8 a.m., very early, to our session on driving targeted business outcomes. My name is Sandra Sidlik. I'm the product marketing manager at Stuzo. And for people that don't know what Stuzo does real quick, we help retailers gain more share of wallet profitably by knowing and activating more customers and data. We do that with our wallet steering system, which is patent pending, and a combination of our own software products, a proprietary methodology, and professional services. We have partnered with NAG and sent out a survey in advance of the conference, which some of you might have responded to get insights on your top goals and initiatives for your business and what type of outcomes you're looking to drive in 2022. So I'll be sharing some of the survey highlights, which I think will be a great setup for our panel, where we'll hear from our panelists and their approach to driving targeted business outcomes. So the very first question I want to highlight is, what digital and customer experience initiatives do you have planned for 2022? And I think what's interesting here, but also not surprising, is that self-checkout, delivery, order ahead, and curbside pickup are all initiatives that at least 40% of the retailers, so 40% of you guys, have planned for 2022. I think those are all initiatives that were maybe already on your roadmap, but needed to be accelerated because of the pandemic and because customers were looking for more safe ways to shop, to get in and out of the store faster or not even in at all, right? And that became and I think we heard this a lot over the past 2 years, the new normal. Customer expectations have changed, and they got used to the convenience of things like what I just mentioned, order ahead, curbside pickup, frictionless checkout, self-checkout, etc. Just to give one more example to support my point here, since the last 18 months, 1 in 5 US customers have bought groceries online for the very first time. And many surveys done by various research companies show that this behavior is here to stay. So again, providing customers with flexibility and choice in how they shop is crucial to first set yourself apart from your competitors, and second, to adapt to the needs of your customers. Launch or overhaul of a loyalty program is one of the top answers here as well, with almost 65%. And I think it's important to point out here that just having a loyalty program is not enough anymore, and I think we can all agree on that. Loyalty should be viewed as an outcome. So treat your members as valued customers by delivering the right experience to the right customer at the right time, which will drive your desired business outcomes. And hopefully our panelists will share some insights on how they're doing this in just a couple of minutes. 58% want to offer more fresh and healthy food options. We had some of the retailers share some of their insights yesterday during the breakfast panel. Food is a high margin category, and driving food sales increases profitability for retailers. And retailers also want to be less dependent on fuel and C-store items. Fuel demand will change in the future as EV is gaining more and more market share. And C-store items can now be ordered online via Amazon, GoPuff, Uber Eats, DoorDash, you name it. NAG's also shared some interesting numbers here as well. Food service sales increased by 15% from 2020 to 2021, which really shows the focus on the food category for many retailers. NAG's also shared that 1 out of 3 shoppers that shop at a convenience store actually buys food somewhere else within the next 30 minutes. So again, food sales increased by 15%, but there is still a huge opportunity here for convenience store retailers to invest in their food offerings and drive food sales. All right, I'm gonna run through the next set of questions a little bit quicker. What are your top goals for your loyalty and payments programs in 2022? Increase membership enrollment is the top answer here with 77%. Remove as much friction as possible from the sign-up process to make it as simple as possible for your customers to enroll. And I think we can all relate to this. How many times have we X'd out of lengthy sign-up or even sign-up forms? Once you have your customers onboarded, use the data you collect on your customers to deliver hyper-personalized experiences that increase basket size and member visits, which are one of your top goals here as well, with 70 and 65%. What are your top goals for your fuel, food, and merch business in 2022? I grouped these three together here on this slide. Over 82% want to increase food sales. As I mentioned earlier, retailers want to be less dependent on fuel and are also using fuel as a driver to drive other sales. John mentioned yesterday, retail categories are blurring, which is another reason to use food as a differentiator. Over 76% want to focus on personalization through loyalty programs. Personalization is key, and it's exactly what customers expect today. Almost 53% want to drive more traffic from the pumps into the store. And I think this is where loyalty can come in, right? Just as an example, once you've identified your fuel-only customers, so customers that just buy fuel from you but never go into the store, drive them into the store by delivering offers such as buy a sandwich and get 5 cents off per gallon, or earn bonus points if you buy fuel and a Snickers or a bag of Doritos. So simply said, use data to inform your program to deliver experiences that drive visits, bigger baskets, and more gallons. Last question before I hand it over to our panel. What are some challenges you face when tracking and analyzing your data? And I think this was an interesting one. 47%, so almost 50%, can't access the data in real time. Having the ability to communicate with your customers in real time is extremely powerful. We only spend so many minutes, sometimes even just seconds, in the store or at the pump. So being able to engage with your customers in real time gives you the ability to, for example, drive them from the pump into the store, upsell, cross-sell, by displaying offers that incentivize them to do so. 41% don't have resources to analyze the data, and 41% also collect a lot of data, but it's scattered across multiple platforms. And I think these are two big ones here as well. The key is to have a technology or platform in place that does that for you, that unifies all of your data so that you can act on it in real time and does so automatically and dynamically, so that you don't need to have a team of business analysts, data analysts that's punching in numbers. All right, that's all what I have. I hope this was a good setup for the panel. The presentation will be available after the conference. I'm very excited to hand it over to my colleague, Steve O'Toole. He is our VP of Business Development and Sales. Enjoy the panel. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Sandra. Great presentation. We've got a great topic today and an even better panel for you, so I'm just going to dive right in and get to the introductions. On the far end, we have Soren Hilgen. He's the Group Chief Digital Officer and US CIO for EG Group. Next, we have Eva Grimm. She's the Chief Operating Officer at JM Davis Industries, who run the Jim Dandy stores. And finally, we have Rachel Pepke. She's the Vice President of Marketing at CEFCO. So thank you all for joining us. Let's dive right into the questions. So the first question, as the title of today's panel is Driving Business Outcomes, let's start at the beginning. First question, how does your organization go about defining its business outcomes? Rachel, I think you get to start.
Yay, lucky me. So we're in the process of redefining what our business outcomes should be. We're very financially driven. I think everyone else is here. But we're building our brand strategy, and there's a lot of other measures that are going to be important to us. As a marketer, I'm coming in, and I'm very focused on the consumer. So ensuring that we're staying on top of what the consumer sentiment is about our brand, and just understanding what their hot buttons are. I think that's really important. Customer service is going to be a big part of our brand strategy as well. And the reason why we're developing our brand strategy is that we're growing significantly for our chain, and we've got stores from West Texas all the way to the Panhandle of Florida, and consistency is going to be really important for us. especially around customer service and the experience from one end to the other end. So that's going to be a really big part as well. And then another big part of our business is growing food service, just like everyone else here. And so measures against food and performance around that is going to be really important. So we're redefining all of that.
Fantastic. Great answer. Did anybody want to add to that before we
I would
build
say
on it?
our business outcomes really, and we spend quite a bit of time in conversations, and that's the benefit sometimes of these panels, that we get to leverage a lot of insights around these questions when we discuss it. And probably the biggest thing that kept coming through for each of us was that when we look at our business outcomes, most of us are very driven on what are we actually going to get out of this. That there's always too many business goals and too many goals going into each year, because we want to move all the needles. We want to see all the things continue to improve. And just by the nature of how much information is available to us, I think Sandra had a great slide in there that shows that I would say everybody in this room, we have more information than we will probably ever use, especially if you start feeding in all the information from our loyalty side of it. So when we look at driving business results, and part of the conversation today, actually settling on fewer that we really want to move has probably been the biggest success driver in the initiatives that have moved the needle. Is you may have a large basket of things that you want to move and some very specific business outcomes, but what are those 2 or 3 that you could really hang your hat on to drive? And they may, in some cases, you could sit there and argue for hours which ones those should be. But at some point, as a leader, you gotta pick some, and you gotta move the needle on those, because I think all of us are very engaged at looking at our businesses and driving everything that we can. But the older you get, the more you realize you can't drive everything at one time and do it really well. So to me, really, driving those business outcomes and setting the goals is about picking and sometimes having to make a decision between 2 really good things that you want to focus on and drive to actually see some good results.
Fantastic. Let's narrow it down a little bit more. Let's talk about business outcomes as they relate to loyalty, payments, and customer engagement. How do you see that? I think you're going to continue on that.
It truly is no different to me than some of the other initiatives that we've taken on before. We're in our company, relatively new in launching loyalty, so I can only speak, from that standpoint. But what we found is that as much as we want to drive all those metrics, and I love the data on the back end, it was really settling on what's the first most important thing that we would want our associates to really focus on. What is it that's going to make them feel in the first 3 months that they move the needle? They're not going to spend hours in all the reports and all the sales analytics. So to them, it truly was saying, how many people can I actively engage and have them join and be part of the Jim Dandy local program? And some of those goals, not just setting them, it's saying, on a weekly basis, they're going to see as a % of transactions what they sign up in their store, what they were able to engage. And sometimes it's just as simple as that, picking very specific things to drive them, then going to the next. Yeah, but I know what your thoughts.
I think that within loyalty, sometimes we have this tie-in where we say loyalty equals rewards, but that doesn't. Rewards is just a component of it. So I think it relates to the way that we execute, and that's what will continue to drive that engagement with the guests.
Really good stuff. So how do you think about involving CPGs in these initiatives, and how do you also align on targeted business outcomes with your CPG partners?
I love this question.
You got a little background.
I do, just a little bit. So we are laser focused on building our user database for our rewards program, and we're working with a great partner in Stuzo. That was not a plug, by the way. But we are, because we're laser focused on building our database, I have a CPG background. I spent 16 years at Pepsi, focused on food service. So I worked with a lot of restaurant customers across the country. And I cannot stress enough how important it is for us to tap into our vendors. No matter what size you are, it's really important for you to leverage your vendors and to help you grow your database. That's exactly what we're doing. We've got a lot of partners that are wanting to buy in and even help us figure out the best way to grow our program. And the way we did that was we're 240 outlets, and we're growing. We're not the biggest guys out there. So the way we did this was just last week. So this is really timely. We brought in our vendors for a top-to-top meeting. Part of it, normally these vendors want to do the top-to-top, but we called them in and said, hey, this is what we want you to come in and talk about the business in 2021. And that was also our opportunity. So our request was to bring in their leaders. So we typically work with the account manager, director, senior director, but we said we're going all the way to the top. Bring your general manager, VPs, levels like that. And we talked about our growth strategy. And like I said, we're not very big, 240 outlets, but we talked about our same-store sales growth. We talked about our 5-year CAGRs. We talked about what our vision was for growing, building our brand strategy and what's important, and food service. And they bought in. They wanted to grow with us. The one thing I just want to tell you all is tap into your vendors and build a relationship and have them understand what's going on with your business, because they will be great partners. They're going to want to invest to help you grow your programs.
Very good. Anything to add?
I'd say probably the value that I found, not just in vendor relations from a sales standpoint or from a category management and trends, and a lot of the folks that our teams see day in and day out on category management and new products and those type of partnerships, is actually tapping into some of the really data side of it. You know, we're talking about loyalty and so much data and intelligence that we can really bring from it. Is, you know, when is the last time you've reached out to head of research at PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, at any of your vendors and said, hey, you know, these are the 3 questions that I really want to know about my consumer behaviors as it relates to this product category, and really giving the questions selfishly that you want. And sometimes it's defining a market that you want to look at. The fact is that most of our vendors and great vendor partners have incredible research departments that have, just like all of us, more data that will really ever get used. But the folks in the research divisions truly have a much deeper insight and access to studies that may have been done by different divisions. Maybe it's a grocery channel study. Maybe it was a drug channel study. And what we found is that when we asked some of these questions in the past, we started from the research folks, and still keeping a lot of our sales and category management partners in the loop, but we started getting back really good questions about, well, what do you really want to know about this? So to the extent that you realize that you were getting access to millions of dollars in consumer insights that I could never afford in my chain to do for every single category that we carry. So I would encourage you to engage that. It's not going around your sales team or your vendor partners that are serving you on the category side, but it's really, you know, finding opportunities to expand that team with resources that are there. And ironically, what we found is that some of the category folks that are so focused on working with our stores, in some cases, weren't even aware of the research and some of the expanded insights that were there. So it's a win-win for everyone.
If I can add to that, if you just say, here's what I'm trying to accomplish with my business, they will find the resources for you, because there's such a depth of information that's available. They will maneuver through the organization to find what is needed. If it's around HR and hiring practices, even though they're focused on category management, they will work through their organization to find insights and research around that, because they sponsor a lot of it. So if you just throw out what your business question is that you want to understand, they will look for it.
And I think also having those conversations about roadmaps helps align with the roadmaps on what we're trying to accomplish versus what they're trying to accomplish, and brings it closer. So it helps with things like even the supply chain issues that we're having. You know,
Right.
having that vision and that roadmap helps align.
It's true.
Critically important to partner with the CPGs. Very good. Next question. What kind of reporting do you put in place to track your progress against your targeted outcomes? Soren, you'll lead this one.
Yeah, so I think, what we, when looking at business outcomes, we need to kind of align on what that really is. And in my mind, it's kind of the effort and the resources spent to attain an expected state, if you will. So in order to do that, I think we need to look at, having the ability to verify those outcomes with measurable events. Making sure that they're aligned to company and top-level goals, and then measuring them over time. So really, as we're aligning, it's like, what are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to increase revenue? Are we trying to increase profitability, decrease cost, increase awareness, increase traffic recency and frequency, and so on and so forth. And once we align and get to that point, then I think what we do is we define some KPIs that can be measured over time. So we look at things like, week over week, month over month, year over year, things of that nature. And the reason why we're looking at it from a time slice perspective is that over time it draws out patterns, and those patterns then can be turned into actionable items that we can go and move on. Now, having said all of that, we have the KPIs, but don't focus on moving the needle on the KPI. Focus on the guest and what the guest wants, and then those KPIs will move.
I'd
That's
say
pretty good.
our last night's conversation really led to this, and Annette, we were talking about wine, and
Well, it was the second bottle of wine where this really started to heat up.
but
don't need to
it
share those
really,
details.
from business outcomes and measuring some of those specific things we were joking about, it's not any grape will do. And it's not picking, if you pick the right berry for the right wine, and Mr. Tom Robinson will tell you, not any red grape's going to make good red wine, or any grape for that matter. And it really, from the business outcome standpoint, it's, it is, you got to have the right berry to make the right result in the end. And sometimes we're on the mark with what our goal is, but we're not aligned to how we're going to get there. So you had a great comment yesterday about, how do you look at finding these new folks, or finding new folks to attract to your program, and it's kind of finding a target. What is it that you really, really want to drive? And then you got to pick what bottle do you want to make? You got to have the right berries.
Right.
It's a
We
powerful analogy, I've got
We
to tell
were,
you.
we were laser focused on, because we were talking about being laser focused on growing our loyalty database. And then we can do a lot with our existing database. There's so much learning. This is why loyalty is really important, because you learn so much from these consumers, and you can start to wallet steer, right? And it actually works. But our issue is we're trying to squeeze juice from a berry, and we need to squeeze juice from a vat. And that was the number one thing I think we saw in terms of what you all are looking for in terms of building loyalty. That is the database in itself. And that once you build that database, you're going to have so much learning on your consumer, and you can start influencing that pump to in-store conversion, that you'll know who those consumers are, and you can start sending these offers, right, to them. And then those that only go into merchandise, how do you shoot them over fuel rewards? But it's great that you can do that, but if you're only targeting this portion of your consumers, we need to get a bigger portion. And so that's why our focus is on building our database.
Good stuff. So next question, how do you think about the mix of on-site and off-site consumer engagement?
Yeah, so I think, that's slowly morphing into one customer. It's the same customer. It's really about how the customer is engaging with us. So it's, you could start the transaction in-store and execute it in-store. You could start it online and execute it in-store, something like curbside or order ahead. Or you can start online and execute online, which is something like delivery. And the fundamental issue, not issue, but the fundamental point is that it's the way that the customers are engaging with us, so we just need to be there wherever they are to better serve them. So from that point, I guess to look at that is we have to look at the customer journey and expand that to look at kind of what does this mean in this multiple faceted way in which that we're engaging. So it starts with engagement and engaging with the customer all along. So pre-transaction, during the transaction, post-transaction, and really building up on that engagement. And then expanding over into the awareness, which is basically telling the customer what we have to offer, and not just what, but how to get it and where to get it. And then being a component of the customer decision piece, which as the customer is making the decision of whether to come visit us or not, it's really about providing the information around what that offer is, and that's where we can really communicate the differentiation factors that we may have that would bring them to our stores. I think the other part that we need to look at is obviously the privacy part of it. So as things are expanding, we need to look at it. We need to be very honest and open with the guests as to what we're doing and the why we're doing it. And then give them ample opportunity along the way to opt in and opt out, so that they can make their own choice. And then while we're looking at all of this, we need to keep an eye on regulatory changes like CCPA and making sure that we're aligning with that, and even technology changes like Apple and Google eliminating that third-party data, which is going to change the way that we look at data, I think, or that we can leverage the data. But by keeping an eye on all of that, I think we're going to be able to accomplish the things that we're looking for and ultimately kind of doing what we need to do to delight the customers.
Very good. Anything to add?
It makes a lot of sense. I think all of us look at the information we get, and through that engagement and loyalty, I think we still struggle. I think we try to be a little more deliberate and say we want to ask the minimal amount up front when we have folks enroll. But then we found that maybe when we do a follow-up around a very specific need or very specific incentive or offer that we're sending their way, that it allows us to tag one more profile question to it. So rather than presenting folks with you become part of the loyalty program and you have 4 pages of profile, you have the really critical pieces in there, and as you go and engage with them, almost like piecemeal, target some very simple additional questions that help you build that additional profile with them feeling like I am coming to you with here's a list of questions I want to know about you. It's more presented from let's make sure that you are opting in for the deals that are available there for you, or for the types of messaging that fit you better.
Providing value, not just collecting data.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Can you share 1 or 2 examples of successful business outcomes you've had with your current programs? And whoever wants to start.
So we have a couple. We are growing our CFCO kitchens, so every new store that we're opening up is going to be tied to kitchen where you can order. It's made to order. And when we first launched the concept of CFCO Kitchen, we included kiosks. So consumers can go on, place an order, wait for their food and walk around the store to buy something else. And we've seen a lot of success, a lot of incremental sales coming out of that, add-on sales that we're getting from that, which is actually paying for itself quickly. So now we're launching this to all of our kitchens. So we've seen a lot of success with that. And it allows us to track, obviously, what they're buying. And then from a loyalty perspective, we just ran this promotion. It was actually fun. It was 2/22/22. That was the date, right? Doesn't happen very often. It's going to happen in another 3 years, 3/33, right? Unfortunately, we probably won't be here.
Where are we going?
Meaning,
Okay. A little scary.
yeah, no, we'll still be alive.
It's your time, it's your time.
Yeah. But we partnered up with Mountain Dew, and it was about choose your do-some, because we like twosomes and do-somes. So through loyalty, we just offered up a free do and a free food item. We wanted to drive trial of our food item. And we saw a significant bump just in that day. We tripled the amount of spend that typically happens on a Tuesday, which it happened to be on a Tuesday. And then we just lost the lapse users. So we know through our app that we've got about 30% of our consumers that are lapse users. And we saw a significant increase in these lapsed users coming back.
Great.
That we had not seen before because of this special offer. So it was just one of those things where you partner up with your beverage provider, you drive trial of your food, and it just worked out for us. And we brought new consumers in, new users to the database, and so that was a fun promotion that we ran.
Excellent.
On the loyalty side, some of the promotions that we found really resonated with folks. We learned that so much of our marketing was geared towards the consumer to drive these programs, and we really weren't marketing enough to our staff. And I'll give you a really simple example. How many of you, just a quick show of hands, how many of you ran a program that would say something like, there's a promotion for Coke family of products? Like I need 20 ounce size or anything like that. So most of us, if you deal with your vendors on a day-to-day basis, you could probably say right off the top of your head, that includes these particular items. It's Fanta, it's Sprite, it's Coca-Cola, it's Coke Zero. Well, what we realized that a lot of our employees didn't know that. A lot of our staff didn't know what the Coke family was or the Pepsi family was, and what else was in this mix. So we actually did a campaign that was focused on the employee. And I mean, it's as ridiculous as it sounds. In a smaller chain, I don't have a huge marketing department, so I literally went on Bing and pulled the images of every one of these on a single page and said, all of these 2 liters are this price, and here's the other one. So we sent it out as it's almost like every campaign now has an internal marketing campaign that goes on their back wall that says, these are the products that are included. What was interesting in that mix is within 2 days, I was out of town and I happened to pull up a camera for looking at one of our stores, looking at the register, and I see this basket in the front. And they had some of their, penny items, kind of like a little quick up. And they've cut the part off that showed all the products visually from their communication and put it up there with customers, and said, we found out that our customers didn't know either. But the lesson for us and the success in that program was the gap that we were able to close in terms of our sales goals that we wanted to reach, that we hadn't been able to before, really resided with our own staff not understanding it. So and not assuming that everybody knew and not realizing. And so we've extended that into some of the other programs. And one of the conversations that came up yesterday, we've actually done that with fuel. When we talk about loyalty, we're always talking about, a lot of times we're really talking about inside sales. We're talking about continuing to grow our average check, growing traffic in the stores, but it really applies to fuel as well. And I would challenge you, when you go back to your stores, looking at your clerks in your locations, when you do a store visit, just ask, how many grades of fuel do we carry, and what are they? It's kind of like the redheaded stepchild. And in this room, we've talked a lot about EV, but the fact is we have locations where I know in some of our larger sites where we've sent a price change, and I've been through a store and I said, so these, which ones are yours in the mix? And they said, well, I'm not sure if we carry this. But it's no different than any other loyalty program and promotion, is that if our staff is not aware, we're still very much in fuel business. Do your staff know the difference between an 87, a 92, or an E-free? So some of those same kind of things in successful promotions truly are about, are your folks truly aware, And do they have the same amount of awareness and understanding of the products you sell inside as they do outside? But,
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think for us, as we were all kind of trying to figure out what curbside meant and how we execute it, I think our ability to switch that quickly, turn it on with our loyalty customers, gave some interesting results. And I think probably the one that really we weren't expecting was a significant increase in the basket size. So of course there was the concern of getting, as touchless as possible. But the ability to provide that allowed maybe one less trip to one of the big box places or so on. So the basket size significantly grew, and that was an interesting change, I guess. The other part of it, I think, from a loyalty perspective, is going back to that kind of two-way communication and the delight of the guest, the ability to push down targeted messages related to maybe deals or things of that nature at the right time. And we've seen significant increases there as well. When we do a campaign where we push a significant discount on, let's say, a pizza pie, the sales for pizza go up through the roof. We have to kind of make sure that we're not over messaging and over communicating, because that gets very annoying. So it's a matter of kind of looking at what the right mix is.
Very good. All right, on the flip side, can you share your biggest failure as a, oh no, I'm not asking that. All right,
Steve.
question number 7. Just before we wrap up this section of the discussion, what piece of advice do you have for the business leaders that are in the room today as they look at upgrade or enhancing or launching new customer experience programs that will drive the business outcomes that they're looking for?
I'd say just try things out. Don't be fearful to try things. Don't be fearful to fail. Just keep moving.
The communication piece, I think to me is a big one. And through the app, we're used to value and offers and promotions. And, we're testing something right now that I would encourage you to look at it from a standpoint of using it truly as a communication tool. And FYI, how do they know that they're in the loop? Whether it's early on deals or it's saying, listen, I have nothing to lose if I know that my cost is going to go up and the market is moving and I'm going to likely have to move. There is absolutely no downside for me to send a message to my loyalty customers that, hey, folks, unfortunately, we're going to have to probably do this later this afternoon. So if you need to fill up, now is a good time to do. And vice versa, when things are moving the other direction, you lose absolutely nothing in the mix, but you're gaining a certain level of trust that says next time that communication comes through, I want to make sure that I'm looking at it. So I would just encourage that the deals, the value, whatever the messaging is that sending, that you don't lose you don't lose the fact that there are people on the other side in this company that are caring about the business, that care about the community. And if you're able to grow and maintain that connection, not just a kind of tit for tat type of program, you will continue to grow it and continue to engage people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think be bold, try different things. We're all about trying to break through the clutter. Before I came here, we were all about transactional offers, right? Twofers, things like that. And we needed to build a relationship with our consumers and help them understand that we get them. We understand why they're coming into our stores, what they need. We're trying to make that experience really simple. And we're trying different things to do that and to help build that relationship and that frequency. And we are trying some bold stuff, so I would say be bold out there because we all have to break through the clutter. We've got a lot of competition out there, and you've got to stand out. And you have to understand who your consumer is, and you have to go after it and drive a message that you feel would resonate with that specific consumer, but be very laser focused on who you're going after. And then just, again, be bold in your message and your offers.
All right, before we open it up for questions, we're going to try something a little bit different. We'll call it our lightning round. I'm going to make a provocative statement about what the future of convenience and fuel retail looks like 5 years out, and then our speakers will agree or disagree, and then quickly explain why. We didn't actually rehearse this, so we're not sure what we're going to get. So, first up, Soren, you'll start this one. We'll see over 5,000 totally frictionless convenience stores similar to Amazon Go in operation in the US, again in 5 years.
5 years, I'd say no. I think the challenge there is the financial expense. The concept is a really good concept. I mean, we went and visited a great store yesterday, but in order to be able to do that at scale, the expense has to come down significantly, and I'm not sure if that five-year window will reduce it enough to get to that 5,000 count.
Just a quick agree, disagree?
I totally agree.
Agree, especially the way, if anybody's trying to build a new store these days with materials, construction costs, and everything going on, that part alone is more challenging now than it's ever been.
Great. All right, the next one. 90% of all transactions will be from known customers where the customer identifies at the site, the forecourt or the backcourt, during the transaction. Let's go, Eva.
I would say no, but it would depend on where you are. We're in a market where there's lots of tourists coming in and out, so you certainly would have nowhere near that mix if you look at summertime and if you look at the seasons going through. If you're in your normal market and you're an absolute rock star and you've figured out loyalty completely, you know where it is, maybe you get close to a 60% in some cases, but not 90. I would say that's really wishful thinking.
That's aggressive, Steve. That's a bad question.
Shoot the messenger.
Yes, Steve,
right.
seriously.
So you think a little too much of a stretch?
It is. I think it's doable. We can get there, but 90% is a little aggressive. Let's
All right,
be real.
let's see if we can be nicer now.
Yeah.
The majority of convenience stores will have ATMs that handle crypto and will have the ability to take crypto at the point of sale.
I don't know at the point of sale, but we're already testing crypto ATMs in our stores. We've got a few, so I think there's a need for it, or for probably less than obvious reasons, but I think it could be done.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we already have crypto ATMs as well, but we're not accepting it for payment. So it's
Right.
kind of that to try to figure out where that's going to align. But
Very good. And then the last one, more consumers will have a preference for paying in cash compared with today. A bit of a contrarian view here. Soren?
what's your take on that?
I like this. No, I don't think so. I think the trend is away from cash. There'll still be some. I don't think it will disappear. I think crypto is going to increase, especially as a way to move money between people, families, and the like. So I think that is, there will be less cash. Probably will still be there. What do you think?
I agree, and I think in Europe it's becoming even stronger and stronger, where those cash transactions are basically non-existent.
So what is this? What do you think? I'm the moderator. Okay.
We don't want to answer questions anymore. We're done.
Anybody else have a view on that one?
I think there's definitely been an undercurrent over the last couple of years that we've seen in just some pockets of markets where folks are almost kind of rebelling against and saying, this is it, I am only paying in cash. But again, those are just some, they're unique parts of it, and as things continue to change, and transparency, whether folks desire it or not, is certainly greater. When you look at electronic and card use, we saw folks shying away from cash and through COVID, of just the perception of money being dirty and attempting to use other forms of payment, but in the end, what I think is really fascinating and interesting that's happened as a result of technology in it is that so much, if you think of today, and whether it's a babysitter, whether it's a friend going out to dinner, how many times we've exchanged and paid somebody via Venmo or PayPal on our phones. We're not passing checks around. We're not passing cash around to each other. I'm curious to see where those platforms and how they're going to continue to tie into our retail and payment space, because I can honestly say, if I look at your kids in college, nobody's sending money in checks. It's either account-based or it's Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, or you name it. So I haven't seen, other than PayPal cards, seeing that payment more integrated in our space from any of these. I think that will be interesting to see how it develops. But.
All right. Further thoughts?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you. This was informative and a lot of fun to have this conversation. I'd like to just open it up for questions. We've got a great panel here, and you can ask them whatever you would like.
So the technology piece of loyalty is a big component and variable, but there's also the people side of that for team members and so forth. So what are some tactics you guys are using to deploy getting your team members engaged in a loyalty program to make sure that as customers are interacting with it, they're getting all the education and knowledge on the platform?
I can speak to that. We are looking into asking all of our employees to sign up for our rewards program, because if they understand it, it'll be really easy for them to articulate that. So that's first and foremost. Right now what we do is we kind of train them in the beginning when they join, and we say, hey, here's our app and this is how you use it. But if we don't ask them to download it and use it as consumers, then they're really not going to represent it well, especially as we're constantly making changes. The other thing too is, again, leverage your vendors. Your vendors want to support your program, because as you build more sales, they will build more sales. So crew incentives will be great. They've got a lot of things. They've got experiences they can offer up. There's just a lot of great things that all of our vendors can tap into that sometimes we just don't think about.
So going back to the employees joining the program, do you create an audience for them and create offers or incentives? Do you treat them as a different segment?
We're actually exploring that. So what can we do just to kind of build specific incentives and offers just for our employees, so they see the value also of being part of that program?
Almost personalizing it for them.
Yes.
Right.
We're doing that already, and we have different benefits for our team members. And not only does it speak to kind of learning the program and being ambassadors of the program, but it also helps with recruiting.
That's true.
Great question.
Yeah, hi, Kevin Rice with Hathaway. Steve, your colleague mentioned a term that I thought was interesting. I think it was wallet steering. Could you explain what that is?
Oh, that's like a plug for my company. All right. Wallet steering is quite simply the difference between what your customers spend overall on a particular product or category and what they're spending with you, the retailer. And the goal of wallet steering is to capture more of that wallet opportunity, what they're spending with others on things they're already buying.
So for example, because we work with Stuzo, we have a lot of great insights that we have with our consumers. So I mentioned it earlier, we know who comes in just for fuel. So what is the offer that we can send only to them through SMS that gets them into the store? We know consumers that are only going in stores, and there are offers we can shoot to them to get them to go to the pump. And then there are consumers where they purchase both. And we understand what they're buying, and if they're buying a lot of beverages, but they're not trying our food, but they're coming in at lunch, then what's that offer that we can shoot over to them that is specific to get them to try our food? So it's just a lot of the learning that we have access to that we can start shooting specific offers to them. And that's why it's really important for us to build our overall database, because we can steer more people towards specific purchases, whereas right now we're not steering a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot, but not as much as
Thanks.
I'd like.
Is that loyalty data fully integrated within your open data? Or is it
We are working on, so we're moving towards PDI Insights Cloud, I think it is, and we're working on integrating that loyalty data with our POS data, so we can get more robust information. But we have a lot of great data in itself that we get from Stuzo.
What about you, Soren?
Yeah, I mean, we've got the data coming into a data lake, and we're basically segmenting the privacy-related information off to the side, and really not digging or not allowing too many people to dig into that. We can build specific segments based on the whatever parameters we're looking for. But the transactional data, yeah, it's all in the data lake, and we have all of our teams that have. So we've built some reporting around it, But we've also built them as analysis models that will allow pretty much anybody to kind of dig in and analyze and slice and dice the data however they want to do it.
Very good. Any other questions? Sure. Okay. I show 11 minutes, so we're staying.
Yeah.
That's not true? Okay. All right, one more question, I guess.
So, Leva had a good example of a real simple solution of just running a marketing campaign for the in-store staff that really helped close the gap on sales. So when it comes to driving and measuring outcomes in the stores, how do you all decide what, how often, how much data or information to share with the frontline staff, district leaders, store managers?
That's a great question, because I would say when you asked about, let's talk about some of the failed
Didn't actually
initiatives.
ask that.
It truly, hypothetically, truly the most painful things in that process have been things that, we love making intelligent decisions off of data. Putting too much of that data on the burden of, having folks. I remember building a dashboard for our store managers so that when they clocked in the morning, it would show their store on all the top. It was like top 8 metrics. Everything from sales to cash over short or anything like that. And I remember talking to the manager one morning, and she said, "It's just different running stores these days." And I said, "Well, what is different about it?" And her comment was, "Well, we used to really be focused on the customer and really spending time up front, and we had some more room to deal with vendors." She said, "But now I come in the morning, and the first thing I see are all these numbers that are rankings in a way. Whether you rank them or not, mentally they're competing. They're competing with every other location of yours." And her reaction was, from the time I get there, I look at these and I'm thinking, oh, let's hope I'm not below the line on one of those. So I didn't have the heart to tell her that I was part of the team that created the situation. But we definitely learned an important lesson to say, what are the kind of things that are going to they need to know, but what do they need to see every day? And to me, it's really back to that second question about the couple of things that you're trying to focus on at the time. All the other things, leave it for your one-on-ones with a manager. When you are there to sit with them, to walk through it, to talk through it and look at regions and help them bring the kind of perspective that they need to have with that, rather than just passing reports. Leave that reporting and communication to things that are truly relevant for them through that week, to run their store, to motivate their folks. They are very, very competitive if you have multiple locations with each other. Let them have some fun with it. Some of our biggest sales successes have been from when they get to see, I am this close to beating you on, my percentage increase on the Hershey bars or on whatever. I mean, I am this close, and they'll literally get to the point where I walked in and said, "What happened to all of the case of Hershey bars?" Because I just couldn't take it. I had to buy the whole case at the end of the day because I was not going to lose by a percentage point. But that is from having very specific data for them for a given time period. They need to see more of it. I think we need to leverage the information we have, but, pitch in, but reserve it for times when you are spending with them, which your team should be spending time with them. Not in the middle of the store, not in the middle of the back room, somewhere where you can actually spend an hour to walk through the other metrics that are relevant to grow a store.
It's a great way to wrap it up. So I want to thank the panel and Sandra for the presentation in the beginning, and thank you all for joining. Thank you. Thank you.